Hola, hello. This is Monica, and in just a couple seconds, Katherine will be with you. Hoy en nuestro podcast les compartimos una conversación en inglés, pero para más columnas, más historias y más periodismo de soluciones en español, visítenos en el colectivo506.com.
I'm Katherine Stanley Obando, and while I spend most of my time now working as a journalist, I'm really a writer and a reader first. And in our bilingual community at El Colectivo 506, we have a lot of passionate readers and writers. So I'm very excited to do something a little different in today's episode of the podcast. We're talking to Kelly Clayton of Semicolon Books in Santa Ana, and to some of the English language authors she's gathered together for a special event coming up very soon that I'm very proud to be a part of. So I wanted to talk to these amazing women about their stories and what it's like to be a writer and an author and a reader in Costa Rica. And I want to start with you, Kelly. I would love to hear more about, I've had the pleasure of meeting you and seeing your bookstore, which is such an amazing corner of Costa Rica. I'd love to hear more about how it came to be and then how you came up with the idea for this authors fair that you're putting on for us.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this amazing idea and gathering us together. And hi, everybody. So the bookstore was born out of COVID, as many of us sat around in COVID and thought about all the things we couldn't do. I really missed the idea of going to a local bookstore and perusing the books, smelling the books, picking them up, touching them. I read in many different ways. I listen to audiobooks, I read on my devices, I read physical books, but during that time, what I really needed was to touch a book and to see it. And I really missed it. And as I had a lot of time on my hands during the shutdown, as it were, the plan unfolded to have a local bookstore where people who read in English would have a space dedicated to them. And I really wanted it to be a place where readers could come together and talk about the books. And I think sometimes people think of, reading as a solitary hobby where you sit by yourself and read. But to me, there's a lot of community in reading and in discussing books. And I would read things and think, I need to talk to somebody about this. I need to digest this book. Or I hated this. Let me tell you how much I hated this. We can talk about it. And I was really happy to have a space and to open a space where we could do that.
That's amazing. Well, I think you've certainly accomplished that. And I did not realize it was a COVID baby. El Colectivo is also a COVID baby. So we have that in common. And I love what you said about touching and feeling and smelling the books. I have found in Costa Rica, I sometimes gravitate towards used bookstores because some of the new bookstores will have everything shrink wrapped. And that really... I get it, but it kind of affects the way that you interact with books and kind of what I think of as the bookstore experience of maybe even getting lost in a book when you're standing there, and being able to talk to someone about, did you read this? What was it like?
Absolutely. It's amazing. Because so much of the picking up a book and deciding if I want to read it is just flipping the pages, even though I might not actually read. Sometimes I like to read the first few sentences or the first paragraph, but sometimes it's even just flipping through. And I think I discounted that need for that tactile piece of book buying and book reading and book enjoyment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you come up with the idea of having an author fair?
Well, I met some amazing authors. And as I started meeting people, I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we were all in a room together and could show and really celebrate all the amazing authors who were here. I think there's a lot of local pride wherever you live. And it's always nice to meet people in your surrounding community who are making art And so this was a way of saying, like, look at all these amazing people. And again, we're coming out of a time where we're kind of isolated, and to say, no, look, there are people doing some amazing things and amazing work. And even if that work was done, 10 years ago, look at all this amazing intellectual talent that we have in this corner of our world, and celebrating it. And I think it's inspiring. I hope that with the event, people come together, and first that it builds community with each other, because, we can have a group of writers together to say, and to, how are you doing? And to really push each other and support each other. But it's also an inspiration. So it's an inspiration, I think, for people who are here and want to write, to maybe get that little nudge, or to have people to look up to, or to push forward with whatever they might be creating as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is, I think it's such a cool initiative, because in addition to people who might come from English speaking countries and are here in Costa Rica, there are also, of course, so many Costa Ricans who love to read in English as well. And then I also think it's really cool to start having this community that I personally have never had, because there's something about writing and talking about writing and supporting each other with writing that even if you're very fluent and comfortable in a second language, there's certain things that are really helpful to have connections in your first language, unless you're Nabokov, who, someone who just can write in any language and it's no problem, but that's a special case. I would love to hear some of the stories of how different people who are joining us connected with you, or came to be a part of this group that's forming of English language authors who are coming together for this fair. And at the end of the episode, I will read the names and the book titles and the links of all of the authors who are participating, so that people who hear the podcast, whether before the event or sometime later, will be able to go and find Semicolon Books and the different authors and books that are a part of it. But for now, I would love to hear from the people who are here in the Zoom with us about how they came across this. Should I put someone on the spot? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for putting this together, Katherine. First of all, it's exciting to learn more about your organization and be a part of this. And Kelly, thank you for putting this author event together. I reached out to Kelly because in Costa Rica, I think she's like one of 3 English bookstores in the entire country that I ended up reaching out to be like, hey, how can we mutually support each other in, the local artist community of authors, and expand the readership? So I had reached out to Kelly, and we just kind of got the conversation going, and she shared with me this amazing event that's coming up, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. And I love the space that you've created. I actually haven't stepped foot in it yet, but I've seen photos, and I would love to live there. It looks so warm and inviting and just open and beautiful. So I'm really thrilled. And just to have this space of community and support, right? Being in another country. And this is such a beautiful, not only an event that you're putting together, Kelly, but just a community, right? Because I see this as something that people can just naturally come to the space and create a community. Yeah. Whether you're artists or readers or what have you.
And Beth, your book is Make Money Your Partner. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you write that while living in Costa Rica?
Actually, I wrote the series prior to coming to Costa Rica, but I actually finished up publishing 3 of the 4 books while in Costa Rica last year. So those actually got launched, even though they were already written. It got completely published while I was here.
Amazing. Excellent. Kate, you've got your hand up. I was just looked up there and you had your hand up. Tell us about your story.
Well, I met Kelly very soon after I moved here. It was just a few weeks, I think, that I'd been in country. And what I've found about bookstores is no matter where I am in the world, bookstores make me feel at home. Like there's just something familiar and warm and inviting about a bookstore. I mean, I kind of grew up in libraries and bookstores, and like everyone has said today, I love smelling and touching the books, and I don't like the shrink wrap either. And so just being new and then going to a space like Semicolon Books and meeting Kelly, there was just something grounding about that experience. And it's funny, I've learned a lot. I just have my debut book out there. So I'm a newbie to this space. And I know other people have far greater experience than I do. And my learning curve has been huge the last 2 years. And my agent, one of the first things she said to me when I was putting my proposal together is, she's like, just spend a lot of time in bookstores. She's like, don't look on Amazon for your comps. Like, go to a bookstore, pick up books, read the acknowledgments, read who the publishers are, read who the agents are. And she said, you learn so much about authors and where they come from and where they're connected by going to bookstores and reading the front page and the last page of the book, which you can't do when you're looking online. And I think that my love of bookstores was heightened by the experience of realizing how much the publishing industry loves bookstores. And so all of that has sort of come together. And so I feel like every time I'm in a bad mood, like go to Semicolon Books. There's no way you leave in a bad mood. It is so beautiful. And it's just like that little kid experience of smelling and touching books.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny, the bookstore came about kind of during and because of COVID. And what you said just makes me think about the experience of books and how sometimes you get a new technology and it opens doors and then you keep going with it. And sometimes you kind of recoil from it. And for me, living in Costa Rica for the past 18 years, I remember when I got a Kindle, it was like, oh my gosh, this just has opened up my whole world. I can read anything I want immediately. But then over time, I kind of rebelled against it. And I think somehow the pandemic sort of heightened that, right? Like when I was able to go to a bookstore during COVID and actually bring back to the house when we were so isolated, these little gems. I mean, there's something to, as we've all said, and we're all authors, so we're very biased, but there's something about just having that book in your hands and being able to talk to people and connect to people, even if you were masked or even if you were at a distance. It just really, I think, made a lot of people understand that experience again in a different way. Mm-hmm. And your book is Equal Partners Improving Gender Equality at Home. I can't wait to read all these books. And there's such a variety. So was that, did that come out of an academic career? No?
It came out of, not really. I mean, I guess I had inklings of the idea when I was working on my dissertation, but it really came out of, I've been doing gender work my whole career. So I've spent 20 years working with nonprofit organizations on doing gender projects. And I became a parent 11 years ago. And I was so frustrated with having sophisticated conversations about gender in Indonesia and Zambia and Nigeria. And I would go to the playground down the street from my apartment in Washington, D.C. and have these ridiculously antiquated conversations about what a mother should do and what a father should do and how society still has very different expectations for men and women. So I think this book came from a place where I wanted to reconcile my personal life and my professional life and find a way to start conversations about gender in my own community, wherever that community happens to be.
Fascinating. And how long have you been in Costa Rica?
Just over a year now. I came last about 14, 15 months. So I'm still pretty new.
Well, that's amazing. I think one of the things that's really rich about living in another country and then just having people from different backgrounds together is discussions about gender. I think I say rich, sometimes it's more of, it can obviously cause conflicts and differences of opinion, but sometimes it's just really juicy. Everyone comes with different ideas and you learn a lot from what's around you.
Absolutely. I tell people, everyone's like, what have you learned about the different places you've lived or traveled to? And I always say, I've learned that I have not found gender equality. There's not one place I've ever been to that has found equality, but I've also not come across a place that isn't willing to talk about it. So I take that as a sign of hope.
That is a sign of hope. Jennifer, I would love to hear about you and your book and your story.
So you're going to move from gender equality to puppy dogs.
Yes, please.
That's quite a big step. Oh, I'm going to sound, wow, what do I say? The basis for how I came up with my story was the mother of a friend of mine found a dog. So it was a very simplistic sort of beginning. I originally planned to write a picture book, which I haven't written, but about a different dog story. My novel basically wrote itself. I don't know how it really came about. I was off on maternity leave. I was living in Belgium, was off on maternity leave, had a lot of time on my hands when my little baby daughter was not crying and needing me. So I started this book, and it took me not that long to write it, but it took 20 years for it to see the light of day. Because life sort of intervened, I lived in Europe for most of my life, and the Middle East before that. So sort of busy with my career, busy being mother to 3 children. And my main problem was that I was not smart enough to figure out how to get it out there. And I had to wait until my son, who understands tech, was old enough to teach me. And so it finally saw the light of day in 2020. And I had to get to Costa Rica and find a publisher, and I got it officially published in 2021. And here we are. And as far as how I met Kelly, I mean, it was a funny thing about Kelly, because I love my Kindle. I adore my Kindle. I love my books. I had to leave masses of them in Europe when I moved to Costa Rica, and that was very heartbreaking, although I did bring my most treasured ones with me. But, I was so focused on the fact that, my book was on Amazon. It never occurred to me to try to get it into bookstores. And that sounds really dumb when I hear myself say it. But it was an in passing sort of thing that I think it was on Facebook, something came up about this bookstore called Semicolon Books. And I was like, oh my God, I should get a hold of the person who runs it and see if they want my book. And lo and behold. So it was a really eye-opening thing. And then in the meantime, I've sort of taken that ball and run with it, and gotten the book into bookstores in Northern California. And so it's been a really thrilling thing. I mean, the idea of my physical book, the book was in her bookstore long before I actually saw a physical copy of it. I only got a physical copy of it about a month ago. And the idea that my book is sitting in somebody's bookstore, somebody can see my cover, my name, all the ego stuff, and that somebody's going to read my words. It's very cool. And I am forever grateful to Kelly for being the very first human being in the world who put my book in her bookstore.
That's amazing. It's kind of blowing my mind how many different experiences and with publishing and the business of being an author there are just in this room, let alone at the broader event you're putting on, and hopefully a community that will keep talking. It's pretty amazing. Costa Rica really brings together a lot of fascinating people, in my opinion, if I do say so myself.
Well, if I can just, for me, I'm really looking forward to this event and to meet other authors, because I've not met. I live in the Arenal area, and we're a little more isolated. I don't know if most of you are in the San Jose area where you have bookstores. I don't have a bookstore. If I want to get a new book, I go to the local pizza place where there's a book exchange, or I wait till I go visit my parents in California, and they always save a box of really good books that I can go through and bring back books with me. But this is going to be a wonderful event for me personally, because I'm really looking forward to meeting other authors, seeing a real bookstore. It's a great opportunity, and I'm really deeply thankful for it.
Yeah, I'm for one in the city. I don't know how many others are as well, but as with any city, it can be kind of an anonymous experience, so I certainly would have more access to bookstores of different kinds. I haven't had a whole lot of connection with, as I said at the beginning, English language writers and readers. You're kind of in the anonymity of the city, and also separated a bit by language. So sometimes I think in the rural communities of Costa Rica, there might be fewer resources, but sometimes the communities are closer knit. So
that's really true.
and hello, Sandra. Is it Sandra?
Hi,
Renata?
Sandra. Sandy.
Renata.
Okay. I was going to respond. In the rural areas, yes, we have far fewer resources, but the air is cleaner, and the community is very close knit. And I speak Spanish, so that allows me to be in both the Gringo and the Tico communities, which is a great help.
And where are you in the country?
I'm in on Lake Arenal, up in the Highlands. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it's a 4.5 hour drive to San Jose. It's a mess. I really don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but very beautiful, but very, very draining. I would love to hear a bit about your book.
Valio's Garden. I had been working for a number of environmental groups, and including the municipalities commission, and just doing a lot of writing, the kind of publicity writing and pamphlets and press releases. And finally, I just had to quit because I really wanted to be writing for myself. I'd written a couple of previous books, but Valio was something that kind of happened serendipitously. I started out saying, okay, if I'm going to write, I'm at a certain age where if I didn't start, I wasn't going to start. And so I said, I'd better start by practicing describing things. So I'm surrounded by natural stuff, and I just decided to start describing what I was seeing. And fortunately, I had, there was a worker on the property, and also Valio was hanging around. And I learned a lot from both of them about the natural world around me, the flowers and the trees, and it was just a wonderful learning experience. So I'm writing all this down and trying to describe things in a lyrical way. And but Valio comes up with the idea of planting an organic garden on our farm. And of course, my husband said yes without thinking about it. And Valio needed daily support, and he just kind of took over the book. But at the same time, I decided I needed to write a memoir. So the whole thing kind of came together. It's just it's episodic, and it's funny in many places, and it's also lyrical. But that's Valio's Garden.
Oh, I can't wait to read that. And I love that there's a combination in the group and in the fair of books that are not directly, their content's not directly tied to Costa Rica. So we have someone coming in and bringing a really interesting topic that people can discuss. And then we have books like yours and mine, which is called Love in Translation, which are really inspired by and about Costa Rica. So that's a really cool blend to have. I would love to hear also, Erin, about your story and your book, which is, am I correct in saying that your book is recent?
Yes, it was just officially launched at the beginning of August. Thank you. Long journey. Some of the stories that I've been hearing today are they're resonating with me, starting, gosh, I think it was 9 years ago when I started writing Ship Shape, which is a middle grade mystery novel. So I'm taking a totally different genre direction here. So yeah, 9 years ago, I had been a teacher for many years, and I had taught in the US and in Europe as well. And I decided to leave teaching, and I was very kind of saddened by the systems of education and what I was seeing around the world. And I needed a break. I needed to get away from it for a while, take a bit of a sabbatical. And I started writing. And what came out was this middle grade mystery novel, which was really bizarre because I wanted to write about pedagogy and teaching and those kinds of things. And none of that is what I ended up doing. And I wrote about these three wonderful characters who find out terrible things are happening in their school, and they go on this adventure with robots and underground tunnels to save their teacher and make change in their community. So yeah, I'm thrilled to have it out in the world. So many, everything that you all have said has really resonated with me. And reading for me is community. It's finding other people who are reading what you're reading or can give you recommendations. I think, being able to talk about books and be around people who like books, like those are my people. And it's really, really exciting to have all of you and be able to connect with all of you. And I can't wait to meet you all in person at the event. And thank you, Kelly, for bringing this together. I think I found you randomly on Facebook because of an indirect connection with Texas Tech Costa Rica. And I'm so glad that I did and I responded. Because I've been going through this launch of this book that I've been, agonizing over for years and years and years. And now it's a totally different role, switching from writing on my own in my room to putting it out there, seeing reviews, getting feedback, solicited or unsolicited, and putting on that marketing hat and doing events. And it's just so exciting to hear all of your stories and how different they are, but also how similar they are. And so, thank you again, and Katherine, for bringing us all together today.
Well, my daughter is 9 and she and I are mystery hounds. We like to watch Poirot episodes together. So very excited for your book. I also just am always so astonished by, my brother wrote a children's book. He's a lawyer and he would get up at 6 on Saturdays and go to the coffee shop and write. And my book is really a memoir. So to me, I get that. Like at the end of the day, I would put my baby daughter to sleep and write down the letters to her, which is what my book is. I can see how I managed to do that. But the people who just tap into a creative world and create fiction while juggling other jobs, I have a special admiration for you. So I'm very excited to see your book and all the books. We will share all the information about this event, about Semicolon Books, and about the individual authors participating. But for now, Kelly, do you have any final closing words?
I'm just so excited to see everybody next weekend on September 30th through October 2nd at the local author fair. I'm so excited to see all of you, and I'm so excited to present you to a broader community. And I'm looking forward to the event, to seeing everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your time and talents. I'm so appreciative.
Thanks to Kelly Clayton of Semicolon Books in Santa Ana, Costa Rica. Find her at semicoloncr.com. If you visit her Facebook page at semicoloncr, you can also find the event page for the English language local author fair, which will take place at the store from September 30th to October 2nd, 2022. Thanks also to the authors who will be at the fair and who joined us for this episode. Their names and book titles are as follows. My apologies for any mispronunciations. Kate Mangino, Equal Partners, Improving Gender Equality at Home. Beth Dana, Make Money Your Partner. Jennifer Freedman, Toby's Tale. Sandra Shaw Homer, Evelio's Garden. Dowd, for the launch of her book, Shipshape. And me, Katherine Stanley Obando, Love and Translation, Letters to My Costa Rican Daughter. The fair will also feature Kimberly Davis, Brave Leadership, Maria Suarez, Spinning Threads, Renata Bicalho, Chloe's Garden, and Raquel Mora, the book I Wish I Had.
This podcast was written and produced by Mónica Quesada Cordero and Katherine Stanley Obando for El Colectivo 506, a women-led journalism organization for and from Costa Rica that focuses on solutions journalism and rural communities. Thank you to Maria Pretis for composing our theme. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow us across social media at El Colectivo 506. And support our independent newsroom by becoming an annual member at elcolectivo506.com/membership.